Hello everyone and welcome to The Aspect. I hope you are all doing well as we move on from the rather grey month of January. My first guest on The Aspect is my friend Alessandro Reali, here to brighten up your day. He holds a master's degree in international relations from Luis Guido Carli in Rome, with study periods in Geneva and Tel Aviv. He worked for Global Action Italy, an Italian NGO based in Rome, from 2018 to 2022 and was its president for his last 13 months. Alessandro also worked at the Indonesian Embassy in Rome and twice at the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He's volunteered in schools in Indonesia and Uganda, and he's now studying for an Italian diplomatic career. I hope you enjoy. Hello, Alessandro, and welcome to The Aspect. Thank you so much for taking out the time to chat with me today.
Hi, Chef. Thanks a lot to you for the invitation.
How are you doing?
Good. I would say good. Finally, it's a sunny Rome after 2 weeks of rain, so at least a bit of sun.
No, Rome needs sun. If anywhere in the world needs sun, it's Rome.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Otherwise, all certainties are
exactly.
lost in this world.
So how are you doing? What are you up to at the moment?
So actually, I was just studying. Unfortunately, this is my life status right now, studying 24/7.
Yeah. What are you studying?
Well, I'm undertaking the preparation for the diplomatic career. So
Yes.
I'm expecting to take the public exam around May, June.
Good luck.
Thank you a lot. Let's hope.
Crossing my fingers for you.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that goes well. Those exams, they're never fun.
Nope, definitely not. And it's a lot of questions, a lot of subjects, and of course, the diplomatic career is a tough one. So of course, also the exam has to be tough.
Well, I'm hoping this podcast will provide you with a bit of a light relief in the meantime, in between all the studying.
For sure.
And today we're going to be talking all about how you've been involved in empowering the youth for sustainable futures, your work with Global Action Italy, and you've been a very busy man. I mean, to give some context, let's just let the listeners know, I met you in 2021. You did an exchange in Geneva at the Geneva Graduate Institute. We met in one of the classes about human rights. You were just always giving very insightful answers, and I always felt like I had no idea what was going on. So I thought we have to look into this a little bit more. Why do you know so much? And then I realized that you were working for Global Action Italy and then became president.
Exactly.
And that's now finished, that role, hasn't it? So that you can actually focus on your studies.
Exactly. No, indeed, I started working for Global Action in 2018, and I became its president in 2021 when I was in Geneva. So when I was taking class with you, I became president, and unfortunately, last December I had to step down only for personal reasons because, as I said, it's a tough preparation, and very luckily, Global Action is increasing its presence, its activity. So it took a lot of time, effort, and dedication. So I had to be very sincere with my colleagues and saying, guys, I'm very sorry. I have to let you go. But yeah.
No, you have to know when to prioritize certain things.
Exactly.
Yeah, you were doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So
I will make a British joke by saying that my leaving Global Action is like Brexit, because at the end of the day, the UK will still be part of Europe as me.
Yes.
Will still be part of Global Action. So
you know what? That's one of the nicer jokes I've heard about Brexit. So we'll take it. And so with your work in Global Action Italy and personally as well, tell me a little bit how that relates to sustainability and how it relates to work with the youth.
So I particularly appreciated your invitation to talk in this podcast about sustainability, because in fact, for me, it's not only about climate change, because of course, the first thing that comes to our mind when we think of sustainability, it's climate or the environment. And in fact, we at Global Action, we are working towards the sustainable goals, like all of them, especially the number 4, which is on quality education.
Yeah.
Why the SDGs are so important? Because they take a 360-degree approach in all kind of sectors. So it's business, so it's politics. And for me, when we speak of sustainability, it should be something that it's repeatable, over time,
Sure.
without damaging society in any way. Because even when we talk about, for example, the climate transition, the energy transition, you should also focus. And for me, people say it rightly when they say we have to have a just transition, because you have to take in account also all the economic aspects, all the social aspects, all the democratic aspects. Like unfortunately we see every day how democracy is shaking because of this transition to more sustainable lifestyles. When we speak of sustainability, when we say that a project should be sustainable, it's not only a matter of there will be plastic glasses or plastic materials in an event. So we shouldn't just be considering how polluting is the thing we are considering. It's also like, is it, for example, economically sustainable? How society will react to it? How will manage to share what we are doing with others? Will they accept that? So I guess more or less this sum up my idea of sustainability.
It really aligns with what the aspect was trying to do. I mean, when I created this idea, one of my gripes, you could say, something, well, more like a pet peeve, was that when we learn about sustainability, as you rightly said, so many people just think sustainability is about climate, and it's really not. I mean, even if you look at it in its most reductive form, you have 3 pillars of sustainability. Not even 3 pillars, you have 4: environment, economic, social, and cultural. What you're saying, to take that wider perspective and look at how things are going to be impacted and how they need to be built from different angles, is really, really important.
It's harder to see it in other fields. For example, when people ask me what is sustainability in education, well, it's a lot of things. Like, is it sustainable how we are educating the youth, for example? Are we giving them the right tools to face the future? Also, that is kind of sustainable, because if we are still educating people, like in schools, people, like young people in schools, as we were doing, I don't know, 40 years before, or even just 10 years ago, then that's not sustainable, because when they will grow, they won't be ready for this world and all the other challenges they face.
Yeah, and I think education and sustainable development, that relationship is very much a double-edged sword, because, as you said, it's important that we teach people about sustainability, but that education has to also be sustainable. Otherwise, there's no point. And I think what really struck me is UNESCO in 2014, they defined sustainable education as allowing every human being to acquire the knowledge, skills, attitude, and values necessary to shape a sustainable future. And I think that's really important. It doesn't matter what level we're teaching it at, whether it's junior or high school level or even higher education. What we need is systemic change, because if governments don't recognize that and organizations don't recognize that, so that we can make those changes and implement more sustainable education structures, then there's kind of no point to any of it.
Exactly. That's what struck me when governments or enterprises ask for new sustainable methods or innovations, and indeed, then this is not reflected in the education part. How do you expect people to come up with new ideas, new solutions, if in fact you don't first educate them on that? And that's first of all involves educating them about what is sustainability. It's not only climate change, or as we were saying before, it's a lot of things.
Yeah. And how did you become interested in working for Global Action then? What was it that drew you to that organization?
The first year, so I'm coming from northern Italy, from a very small town. Well, not very small, but rather small. And I moved to Rome to study at university. And I was in a university tour with other roommates, and most of them already took part in a MUN, in a model United simulations when they were in high school. For me, it was totally something completely new. I was like, oh, sounds cool. I will do one now, and I did. So I met a girl that was doing an internship with Global Action. He explained to me a little bit what they were doing, what they were trying to achieve. So back in 2018, it was very different from how Global Action is right now. But in fact, for me, I joined, I combined the two things. So I was really enjoying the MUN simulation, so that international relations part, the diplomacy part. And I was looking at global action. I was like, that's really cool. Always being involved in like in working with school kids, because even when I was younger, I was like working in the how can I say, like in the church community in the afternoon. So I was like, that's cool. So I can still be enjoying like working with children, even though they are like teenagers. Plus adding the diplomacy part. So that's how I joined Global Action. Yeah, from then university for me became more like a hobby, as you were saying before. Because in fact, for me, I got the most pleasure in my days from the activities of Global Action. And in Italy, the university is very much focused on the theoretical aspects. Okay. So a lot of huge books I can show you
of information.
High shelves. But it's lacking a bit of, those practical experiences. Sure. And so I was doing that with Global Action because from that, I got a lot of new opportunities. I started an internship in the Indonesian embassy here in Rome. And I met wonderful diplomats that really helped me choosing this path in my career. Then I worked at the ministry twice because of that, because I already had some practical skills that I acquired with Global Action. And so people were surprised, and that's a bit sad, but they were surprised when they saw me already knowing how to do these things, because I already did them in my internship experiences. Yeah. For me, it was a fundamental part of my life, really.
Yeah, and so university and Global Action really was that match made in heaven between the theoretical learning and then the application. It's a really amazing position to be in, where you manage to experience both. And hopefully people listening to this might realize that, okay, is my course or my school only teaching more theoretical aspects of sustainability or education in general, and what more can I look for to satisfy that more practical implementation of that knowledge? And I think that's really important, because that's how we build careers, right? Like it also it works for the topic on, sustainable careers as well, because if we're not taught how to apply knowledge, then we're a bit screwed.
It's also a lot of reality coming into your life, because sometimes when you are just studying in universities, for example, the human rights course we were doing together, human rights, like government should just follow them, and that's it. That's very easy. But then reality is something else.
It's much more complicated.
And you realize it most of the times because of like the professional part of your education. So for me, it was very important. And I have to make a public thank you to my friends that were passing me notes, because of course, not focusing on university.
You had some help.
Yes.
You've spoken to us about what sustainability means to you. How do you see a sustainable future? What does that look like to you?
Well, I would say this is $1 million question. Well, indeed, I guess everything is very, very interdependent. So I particularly appreciate, for example, when enterprises like the private sector goes into universities or high schools and talk to the teachers, to the professors, or to the public institutions that are dealing with education, and say, look, in our business model for the future, so this sustainable part of the economic sustainable part, the industrial sustainability, look, we need these skills. So you should focus on educating the younger generations on this kind of skills. So for me, it starts a lot with communicating with one sector to another, because it's not only an interdependence on the practical level. It should be also an interdependence also on the decision making. It shouldn't be just government going in that direction, the private sector going into another direction, the education sector going in one direction. It should be all coordinated, because in fact it shouldn't be everyone doing its own interests. It should be doing everyone's the society overall interest,
a collective interest.
Exactly. And it takes, of course, a lot of effort, coordination, communication. When you ask me how do I see a sustainable future, well, I don't know. I will be very honest, I don't know, but I hope there will be more coordination between states, because that's what I'm gonna have to deal with. And of course, but even if you look at diplomacy, it really changed from the past. In the past, it was just on a very strict political level, while right now we keep hearing public diplomacy, economic diplomacy, school diplomacy. Diplomacy is expanding throughout all sectors of society, because all sectors of society are realizing that to bring about a positive change to our world, so to go towards a more sustainable future, we need to cooperate all together.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting what you said about these different aspects of diplomacy, because one thing I've realized in my research, even through my own degree, is that concepts like diplomacy and sustainability do not mean the same things that they meant 20, 30, 40 years ago. The meanings have changed because the world has changed in which we apply those meanings. And quite honestly, in my opinion, I don't think we can use the original definitions in today's world, because, the Brundtland Report, how they define sustainability, that was way back in 1987. And
Exactly.
Whilst the principle of it is the same, that we have to sustain for future generations, we can't take away. At the end of the day, we're living in a really complex time now, where it becomes much more complicated than just preserving and conserving. We're working
absolutely
in the context of pandemics, of wars, climate crisis, social crises. Not to put a downer on the conversation, but it's the truth. I mean, we can look at things from a more positive, realist perspective, which is what I'm trying to do through this podcast. And what that means is we can't be ignorant to all of the challenges that we're facing, but what we have to understand is then we have to adapt. So we can still look at things from a more positive perspective. Doesn't necessarily mean overly optimistic, because optimistic implies unrealistic. So we have to stay realistic, but I still think we can look at this from a problem-solving perspective.
Yeah, of course. And you were saying perfectly, like even the meaning of sustainability has changed throughout time. So alongside with coordination and cooperation, I would add also adapting to what our world needs more quickly, because of course, like 30, 40 years ago, we're thinking of sustainability just in environmental terms, while then we had the Millennium Development Goals. Now we have the Sustainable Development Goals, and we can see how the concept keeps evolving and changing.
Yeah.
And it might be that in 10 years from now, sustainability won't mean the same thing as today.
Yeah.
So also that's another thing that I would add into my sustainable future, to have a world that also is able to adapt more quicker and more rightly to these evolving concepts.
Yeah. No, definitely. And going back to what you talked about earlier, you've done a lot of work with youth engagement, especially through Global Action, and you seem to just have a real passion for wanting to help educate younger generations. So in your opinion, how powerful can that youth engagement actually be? What is the potential in the youth?
No,
it's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big question, and I would like to take ownership of my answer, but in fact, it's not my opinion. Like we have seen it with, for example, the climate change strikes, how the voice of the youth is so powerful.
Yeah.
So it won't be me saying of course involving the youth is important, but really with the climate change strikes, with the Fridays for Future movement, we have seen the importance. That was the perfect representation of the importance that the youth play in our society.
Yeah.
But then I would say we experience daily examples of that. Is also something, I guess, physiological, because the youth have more energies, they have more ideals. When we are young, we really have in our body that willingness of change the world.
It's a challenge sometimes, though.
Exactly, because that's the bad side of it, that we feel a lot of pressure, because feels like we need to do so many things.
That burden, yeah.
Exactly. But For me, it's amazing. I always see the youth at the forefront of demanding to bring about a change. For example, I remember when there was the migration crisis in 2015, 2016, and there were young volunteers going to migration hotspots. Like unfortunately, it's something we know very well in Italy, in Greece. And they completely ignore all they went there regardless of all that political noise around the migration issue. This is what I particularly appreciate about the youth, that first they put actions and then they put words, and that's really important. And in fact, I remember in 2021, yes, we started this project with Global Action that was very creative. It was Global Takes Action, and it was about climate change and sustainability. Because in fact, I wasn't completely satisfied with the Fridays for Future movement,
right?
And I will expand on that because, of course, I highly respect what they are doing, but I guess sometimes it's just not enough to protest and saying we need change, because there were some governments, some politicians saying, okay, we know that, but how we are going to do that? We don't know how to
bring
do
us
it.
some solutions. Yeah,
exactly. So with Global Takes Action, we wanted to go to the youth and say, listen, you're perfectly right saying that we need to bring about change, but that needs innovation, it needs education, and it needs new solutions. So here you have a platform where you can tell us what are your ideas, what are your solutions to small problems, of course, because we weren't pretending to solve the world's problems. So we were giving a platform for the students to talk to institutions and businesses, because we had both in that project. It was amazing. And also the way around, the other way around. So businesses and institutions going to the youth and saying, listen, we are hearing you, but we are missing this. So we don't know how to find a solution for this.
It comes back to communication.
Exactly. For us, it was very important that that project, because it gave both the institutions and businesses and the youth like a platform to discuss. But on the other side, I don't like, and I highly condemn it, when the institutions instrumentalize the youth, just saying, they pretend they are doing something. So that part of actions I was referring to before, just because they claim they are listening to the youth, because they are involving them in forums or events, when in fact it's only a bit superficial.
Yeah.
As I said, instrumental. Because if I'm coming to you and saying, I'm very uncomfortable with the decisions you are making, and in fact, then you completely ignore them and you state on your Twitter, yes, Alessandro today talked to me and says, I'm very comfortable. That's great, but you don't change anything.
Exactly.
That's a bit annoying.
No, definitely. It's like greenwashing, but with youth washing. I don't know if that's a term. Maybe we just created it, or maybe it's already a term. I can't claim it. But no, it's true, because I think we're seeing with younger generations, there's a lot more action before words, as you were saying, but still with established organizations and states, it's a lot of words and not a lot of action. We're not in a time anymore where there's a lack of scientific data and a lack of platforms upon which we can actually talk about this stuff and promote it. So it's really the time now to do something about it. And the youth have very much recognized that, I think, internationally. It's about time that those with even more power and influence and the ability to make those changes actually get on board.
I guess with involving the youth, so the youth engagement in the decision-making process is not only a right of young people, it's also a duty, because I cannot pretend to be involved in a decision-making process if I don't bring something to the table. Unfortunately, this second aspect sometimes is a bit too overshadowed by the youth, and this is what I didn't like about the Fridays for Future movement. I'm taking the Fridays for Future because it's the biggest example, but there are many others, and I don't want to blame them for anything.
No,
I love them, as every one of us did. But in fact, it's that part. It's not only a right for us to be included, it's also a duty for us to bring something to the conversation.
That's
and
really important.
that's why we go back to education. How do we bring something to the table? By educating ourselves.
That was beautifully done.
I wasn't prepared.
That was a lovely little full circle moment. And it's really important what you've raised. The youth, whilst they need to stand up for what they believe in and have this duty, they can't have this double standard where
Exactly.
they can protest about it but then not try and do anything to make a difference. And
exactly.
We can't expect the youth to have all of the solutions, but we do need to ask them to start brainstorming and bringing ideas to the table.
Exactly. It's like you're deciding where to go for dinner. I would suggest an Italian restaurant, but indeed there is a there is a person making the decision, and you say, "Hey, I want to be involved in the decision because I want to know where we are going to eat tonight." Okay, what are your proposals?
Yeah.
I don't know. You decide. So what's
Brava.
the point?
Exactly.
What's the point?
Thank you so much for sharing these really cool insights so far. It's been great talking to you a bit more about sustainability and what it means to you. We're going to take a break and we're going to go into some rapid fire questions. By we, I mean you, and I'm going to be asking them. And this is a fun little insight for our listeners to get to know a bit more about you. These are totally unrelated to sustainability. I will point that out now, but listeners and myself can judge accordingly, dependent upon your answer. Are you
Perfect.
ready?
Yes.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs, for sure.
Summer or winter?
Winter, but in Rome.
So not our winter. Okay. Favorite color?
Red.
Favorite food?
Pizza. Yesterday was Pizza International Day.
Oh my God, what an amazing day. That must be the best day in the world. Blue or green? And there is a correct answer to this one.
Blue.
That's the wrong answer.
Oh no.
A night in or a night out?
In, 100%.
Are you more of an extrovert or an introvert?
It depends on the situation. I would say an introvert.
Would you prefer fresh food or fry food?
Fresh food.
You're Italian, so it should be fresh food. Exactly. Who is your hero?
My grandpa.
Oh! What is your favorite word in another language?
I would say English commitment.
Oh, that's a
deep.
good one. That's a good one. I'm going to be really basic when I say this, and this probably won't make it into the episode. But one of my favorite words, you probably heard this a lot, is, and I'm probably not going to pronounce it correctly, is attraversiamo.
Like to cross?
Yeah, it's in Eat, Pray, Love.
Okay.
The film. It means, they said it means let's cross over.
Yes. Well, the first thing I thought was like, because we say attraversiamo when you're on the sidewalks and you say, let's cross the street. Attraversiamo.
Okay.
That's what I was like.
Have you watched Eat, Pray, Love? I'll send you a link. To the scene. You will understand because you looked so confused then. I was like, have I said the wrong word? But it's definitely
No.
What's your favorite store?
I would say the pizzeria.
Okay. Do you collect anything?
I would say books. I collect books.
Do you have a quote that resonates with you?
Yes, it's a quote, but I don't know from whom.
Okay.
And it's often we feel tired because we are doing something that doesn't motivate us.
Oh, that's very deep. Okay, so the answer to that question is, of course, do something that motivates you and that you love.
Exactly.
That was a lot of fun. I liked that. That's a good insight into your character. And you only got one question wrong, which was blue or green. And the answer is obviously green.
Why was green?
That's
because
okay.
That's your favorite color.
It is my favorite color. And it's also the color of the aspect and the branding. So
right. Of course.
That's okay, though, don't worry. Thank you, Alessandro, for taking part in my rapid fire question round.
Thanks to you, I will wait for the grade.
You have passed. You have passed. I can tell you that much. And now we'll move on to our last few questions in this episode. And these revolve around your work, personal work and career work. And so my first question to you is, how are you working towards sustainable futures? We've talked about what sustainable futures mean to you. How are you working towards them from a personal or career perspective?
And that's another million questions. Another
are you sensing
$1 million questions. Yes. No, so well, of course, I was working with global action. That's I hope it has a lot to do with reaching a sustainable future. From my experience, I realized I was really good. I'm really good at project managing and personal relations, and I love diplomacy. So I combined all the the three things. I was like, let's go work for the diplomatic corp in Italy.
Yeah.
Now, I will explain a little bit that, because my understanding of the world is that states still play a huge part in our lives, and of course, when we need such a strong change in our lifestyles, in our industrial model, these kind of things, it should start from the government. Still in that view of coordinating everything, because the state, that sometimes we perceive it very far from us, but in fact it's above us, as this power to coordinate everyone, and that's also what diplomats do. Of course, there are a lot of problems on that. But indeed, for me, it's I would love to work for the Italian diplomatic corps, because I want to be part of that change. I loved working in multilateral institutions. So when I was doing my internship at the Italian representation here in Rome. In Rome, we have the 3 UN food agencies, so the World Food Programme, the Food and Agricultural Organization, and the International Fund for Agricultural Development. How to coordinate everything, so our enterprises to invest in, for example, rural communities in less developed countries, and how to involve also our NGOs. In Italy, we have a really strong interest in the civil society organization, because for good and bad things, we have a history of church involvement throughout the world. So how to coordinate all these kind of things, all these kind of entities, all these kind of different actors to bring about that change. We have been talking for half an hour now. And for me, as I was saying, the state has a big part of it. So I would like to be a public servant for my country and for any kind of the United Nations. I'm a big supporter of the United Nations and of the European Union, because I hope they are enabled to have, as I will repeat myself, this coordination role, and also setting the ideals. Luckily, diplomats have most of the times very high ideals on the world, on democratic processes, on sustainable development, on human rights. So I see them as the ones matching the most words with actions.
Yeah. So if any Italian diplomacy officials are listening, Alessandro wants a job.
Be aware, we'll be taking the exam this year, so please.
He's going to be ready to enter the job world. So anyone listening, give this man a job, please. There we go. We put out a career call for you as well.
Thank you for the advertisement.
No worries at all. And so do you feel that working in diplomatic channels, do you think that there is a lot of scope for change? Do you think we're at the time in the 21st century where diplomats and states are ready to listen and make changes, or do you think we still won't see that for years and decades?
No, because it takes time. Time. Sometimes we criticize too much our government. We should criticize them, because that's part of the democratic process, but sometimes we criticize them too much. And I go back to my first answer, I guess, that when we talk about, for example, sustainability, environmental sustainability, we need to take into consideration all the other aspects. But and we criticize the government because it's not taking enough actions to solve the climate crisis. When it might be, it's not 100% sure, but it might be that the government has to take into consideration other aspects. For example, what will happen to our industry if we go 100% carbon right now, zero carbon right now?
Yeah, not 100% carbon.
Yes.
Zero
Let's
carbon.
Go back. But on the other side, I guess we really need more diplomacy and more, again, communication between countries, for example, because the West has a lot to do with the climate crisis, because, of course, we were the first experimenting the Industrial Revolution. But still now we are involved in that undo process.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there are still a lot of countries that are not doing that, and they are considering themselves they are the most polluting in the world. That's why I was saying we need more coordination, and in order to change those minds we need a lot of diplomacy to make them understand that it's also in their interest to revert that, to change that behavior. On this, I particularly appreciate, and again, I will advertise myself as for the career, but no, I particularly appreciate when, for example, Italy say, and then let's see if it also we followed by actions. Italy saying we are gonna invest, especially in Africa, because they are our neighbors, but we don't want just to go there, take profit and come back. So take the green sources and come back. No, we want also to invest locally. So you grow there, like you grow also talent there, and it's sustainable.
And so, Alessandro, you've obviously done quite a bit of work with Global Action, especially whilst being their president, and now you're venturing off into the world of diplomacy. So how do you plan to harness the power of the youth moving forwards? And you are young yourself, so going into diplomacy as a young person must have its own challenges.
Well, thanks for the question, because it's a really good one. Of course, there were a lot of projects when I left Global Action, and I would like to bring them to the upper level. So I hope when I will access the diplomatic corps to adapt those projects to, as I said, an upper level, to a wider audience. And I'm saying that because I struggled a bit when I was president, even before, to have a direct line, a direct contact with institutions. So sometimes they were a bit far from us, even though we were doing something they now claim they want to bring. They want to bring up in their policies. That goes back to what I was saying before, that it's not only words saying we need to engage the youth, it's also about actions. But in fact, for me, it was really frustrating, because when I was looking for actions myself, proposing them, it wasn't met on the other side from the institutions. So I would like to, I hope, get into it and revert that aspect.
So you said that at times reaching out to institutions felt quite challenging. Did you feel the same way about reaching out to younger generations, or were they always more forthcoming?
It depends, because the youth the younger people are completely different from one another. So that was a challenge for us, because of course, when we were doing our projects, some of our projects were dealing with a full class of high school, for example. And of course, in one single class, you don't have all the people interested in diplomacy or international relations. So we were adapting our projects to reach the potential and the interest of each of the student. So for example, when we were doing our main project, diplomacy education, so a diplomat would go to the school explaining about his country, his job, and everything. And then the students will represent that country in a model United Nations simulation. Of course, we weren't pretending all the students to be, weren't forcing the students to be all delegates, so public speaking and all this negotiating, but we also invented some other side roles, so photographer, journalist, social media manager, to give everyone the opportunity to bring something to the delegation.
There's more diversity.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I would like to bring to the upper level, because of course, I don't pretend that every person is like me or like you, that has my same interest. What we need to find is what motivates people, what the people are good at. For example, my brother is completely different from me. He's an engineer working.
My sister's a musician, so I understand.
Exactly. We should harness the interest and the potential of every single person. That's why it's also goes back again to that interconnectedness of our world, of our society. So it's not only politics that will bring about change. It will be politics when it involves the economic side, when it involves civil society, when it involves youth organization. For example, I will make a critic to my country, because when we were applying to public projects, for example, from our Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We just won one, a very big one in December for organizing, thank you, the ASEAN-Italy Youth Conference in Jakarta next May. But those public funds, it was really hard for us to access them. And they were made for especially bigger organizations, bigger NGOs. And I was like, how do you pretend to have new ideas, new solutions, new projects when in fact you are preparing public calls that favor big corporations, big NGOs? In fact, you are already excluding all those volunteering associations, all those small local organizations.
And they're the ones that would need the money.
Exactly. That's an example how the institution is not harnessing and fully exploiting the potential of its society. And that's really pity.
Yeah.
A pity.
I think I really love how you explained that about wanting to tap into the potential of individuals rather than generalizing. And with younger generations, I think, and I don't speak for all of them, this is an opinion of my own, but I think a lot of people listen to the words like sustainability and politics, and they can be quite disengaging, because if you don't have an interest in government, in diplomacy, in the environment, then people may think, okay, that has nothing to do with me, I'm not going to pay attention. But as you've rightly said, and as we've talked about, sustainability is so much more than state. As you said, with the model UN work, we need social media management, we need communicators, we need photographers, as you said. Creative arts is a whole other story about how we make that sustainable. So I think it's really important that you highlighted the fact that there is some kind of sustainable motivation that we can find in everyone.
Exactly. No, and that's exactly what I meant when I said we try to fully exploit and give some skills to every student, the potential of every student, because in fact there might be a boy or a girl that is not interested in diplomacy or in politics like we that are doing the project are. But if we give him or her the skills, for example, to be a really great social media manager, he or she can use its skills to bring about some change in other sectors of society.
Exactly. It's transferable.
Exactly. So whenever we had some critics from students saying, but I don't care about diplomacy, I don't care about this diplomat from this country. It's like, okay, but still, that everything that we are dealing with impacts also your life. For example, if a girl would tell me that, I would say, that we have a huge problem with gender pay gap, and that's also part of that sustainable transition. So our project should also interest you, because first we are telling you that, and that's already the first part of the solution, like telling you that. Second, seeing how through cooperation and communication we can achieve that.
Yeah, and I think those transferable skills become sustainable. So from an educational perspective, it's really important to have sustainable skills that can be transferred between sectors. As you just said, it doesn't even need to relate to politics.
Exactly.
So Alessandro, thank you so much for sharing such valuable insights and for chatting with me today. It's been great speaking to you. And what we want to leave the listeners with are a couple of recommendations and calls to action. So my penultimate question for you is, do you have a media recommendation that relates to sustainability or youth in some way?
So I will be very old school. I will choose 2 books and a movie. So the first book is The Blues Weather from Jacqueline Novogratz. She's also the founder of Acumen, I guess it's pronounced. She's more famous because her husband is the inventor of the TED Talk.
Oh, wow.
Exactly. But this book is really amazing. Also, second book, The Manifesto for a Moral Revolution, it's super inspiring, and it also gives really the idea of every one of us can bring about change. The second book for geeks of diplomacy and politics like me is The Education of an Idealist from Samantha Power.
Yes.
He was the US ambassador to the UN with the second term of Obama, and she's amazing. I would say she really matches the words and actions, and that's for me, it was amazing. And the movie, again, for geek of diplomacy and international relations, the documentary about Sergio Vieira de Mello, the UN civil servant, one of the most important, that was killed in Iraq in 2004. Again, it's really an inspiring documentary. I guess it's on Netflix, but you can find it online.
That's great. Thank you so much, Alessandro. And we'll make sure that those are written in this episode's description so that anyone who is listening and wants to check those out can do. So we will put those down below in the description. And my final question to you then, Alessandro, is we want to, in these episodes, leave listeners with a call to action from each guest. So what is your call to action that people listening can take away?
Don't wait to change the world, and you are not too powerless or too irrelevant to do that. You don't have to have like a gray hair or wear a tie. Like you can really make an impact in everything you do and in everything that interests you. So that's my call to action.
That's great. Thank you so much. What an inspiring way to end.
Thank you a lot, Chef, for giving me this opportunity.
No, thank you for coming onto the podcast, Alessandro, and you are one of our first guests, so this will always be an episode very dear to me, and it's great to be able to stay in touch with you, and I wish you all the best on your journey into Italian diplomacy. Anyone who hires you will be very, very lucky to have you on board. I know that much.
Thank you a lot. Thank you. And for everyone who wants to reach me out, you can find me easily on social media. So we'll be very happy to continue this conversation, whoever is interested into.
Yeah, we can even link one of your contact socials down below in the episode description so that if anyone wants to contact you, then they can.
Just don't ask me if we put pineapple on pizzas, because that's 100% no.
You can't ask any Italians that. I don't think that's just you. Thank you so much, Alessandro, and we're wishing you all the best, I'm sure. It's been absolutely great to have you on The Aspect, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you, Chef. See
Ciao.
you soon.
Hi everyone, thank you for listening and watching this first episode of the Aspect podcast. Please like, follow and subscribe on your favourite listening app. You would make me very happy. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok and YouTube. All of the socials are on the website. Take care of yourselves. I'll be back soon.